Hello everybody and welcome to Ghosts, Ghouls and the Supernatural. This is a new series that I'm doing. I'm so excited for it. One of the things that I'm super passionate about in life and that keeps me up at night, making me think and ponder and ask questions, is everything to do with the supernatural. So I thought I would start a new series of things that explore each episode a new bit of the supernatural. And now it is Halloween time, so of course I've got to choose a Halloween themed monster of the week. So I have my little book. I'm very happy about it. It's been one of those notebooks that I've had at the back of the shelf for years and gone, one day I'll find something that will measure up to the oldness of what this book looks like, and then I will fill it with that. And so it's just been empty. But now I have found something to fill the notebook with, and that is Ghosts, Ghouls and the Supernatural. This week, or at least this episode, I don't know if it's going to be this week. Let me know if you like this, if you want more of this. Let me know. But this episode of Ghosts, Ghouls and the Supernatural is all about the Headless Horseman. I was thinking Halloween, I was thinking pumpkins, I was dreaming of all of the things that I wanted to carve my pumpkin this year as. And then I thought, why do we do pumpkins? And what's a monster that has got everything to do with this idea of the jack-o'-lantern? And immediately I thought of the myth of the Headless Horseman, and I thought, I don't know anything about that. How do I not know? Is he a ghost? Is he a ghoul? Is he just part of the supernatural? And I found actually he is all of those. And he is not just a he is multiple he's. Let's delve in to the theories, myths, and legends around the Headless Horseman. And I'm gonna share a little bit about what I've learned and a few of the stories of the Headless Horseman. So through everything that I've found, the Headless Horseman and the myth of the Headless Horseman comes from multiple places around the world. And through all of them, he's either seen as a mythical creature, or a ghost, or in one of them, even the manifestation of a god. So let me back up. The idea of the Headless Horseman first appeared in the Middle Ages, which is between the 5th and the 15th centuries. So that's 1,000 years difference. So I'm gonna say the Headless Horseman just came from the past. But the Headless Horseman, if you don't know, is a man who appears with no head riding on horseback. Sometimes he's carrying his head, sometimes he just doesn't have a head. Sometimes he's carrying a gold replacement for his head, aka a jack-o'-lantern, aka a carved, angry-looking pumpkin. But throughout all of the tales and the legends that I found, the Headless Horseman is always, or almost always, an omen of death. Wherever the Headless Horseman is either seen or where he stops, a person will die, either imminently around the Headless Horseman if the Headless Horseman stops in a town, or exactly on that spot. It might be in a couple of minutes, it might be the next day, but the Headless Horseman is an omen of death. Poor guy, he's just looking for his head. But no, he has to scare everybody whilst doing it. But I'm about to tell you a couple of the stories that I've found, one of which is metal as fuck, really. It really is. And I'm pretty sure that version of the Headless Horseman is definitely trying to scare people rather than just find his head. So most of us know the Headless Horseman through the legend and the tale of Sleepy Hollow. This was a story written by Washington Irving, who I looked him up. He's a super cool dude, wrote a lot about political essays and things like that. Really cool dude, really big brain, and sat there and kind of went one day, you know what, I'm gonna just write some stories, some short stories, just to amuse myself that aren't political commentary or anything like that. And he created, or at least he was inspired by the mythology of the Headless Horseman, and he created the legend of Sleepy Hollow, which has been turned into a film with Johnny Depp. We're not making any comment on that. But it's usually the thing that most people know the Headless Horseman through. Because we all kind of know the Headless Horseman's tale through Sleepy Hollow, I'm not going to really go into it. I don't think I can tell that story as well as the film did, so go watch the film, or don't, or just be told the film, watch the trailer, you'll understand. But in the version, Washington Irving's version of the Sleepy Hollow, of the Headless Horseman, he is a ghost. He is a ghost of a man who fought in the American Revolutionary War. I saw that it was a Hessian trooper, which is a German trooper that fought on the side of the British in the American wars. Poor Germans, always getting stuck in the middle of battles. But apparently in Legends of Sleepy Hollow, this dude died in not 1976, that's a bit early, 1776. When a cannonball took his head off, and he got super mad and came back as a ghost and haunts Sleepy Hollow. Fun fact, Washington Irving, the writer of the legend of Sleepy Hollow, is actually buried in Sleepy Hollow in New York, which I quite like. I like that symmetry. But I'm not going to be talking about that version. And I'm not even going to be touching on the UK's version of the tale of the Headless Horseman, which is in the big epic poem, The Tale, which nobody knows who wrote, which is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. If you studied school in the UK, you probably read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, or came up against it in reading Beowulf. And if you comprehended it at that age, aces. You're amazing. You're a star. Go and win a literary award. But if you're like me, you probably went, okay, this is kind of like Merlin, so I'm just going to remember the story of Merlin and put a knight in green armor there. In Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the Green Knight is actually the Headless Horseman, and he very much turns around and he lays down a dueling kind of thing against Sir King Arthur, or one of the Knights of the Round Table. I can't quite remember, but essentially, this Knight at the Round Table turns around to this mysterious Green Knight who refuses to show his face, and he's like, you dare to challenge me to a duel? I'll tell you what. And he whips out his sword and he lops this dude's head off, right there, in the middle of what is essentially a political debate. He just lops it off. And the Green Knight kind of does something that is one of the most badass moves, which is he kind of just shrugs and picks his head back up and turns around and says, cool, are you done now? I'll see you tomorrow for the actual duel. So that is the story of that. The text is freely available online. Again, because it's something that is a version of the Headless Horseman that is so widely available and pretty well known, I'm not really going to go into that. But I did want to mention it because I really think that there is a through line between all of these mythologies of the Headless Horseman. And now we're going to move on to the story that I actually want to tell. I thought when I saw this, it was a footnote on the Wikipedia page, and I kind of got a little bit interested, and I was like, well, who is this person called Ewan from Scotland? And why is he associated with the Headless Horseman? I don't understand. I've never heard of this. I've never encountered this. And so I did a little bit of digging, and I didn't think that there was going to be much of a story, because most of the time, Ewan, the Headless, which is what he's known as, is a footnote. And then I found a hilarious, wonderful story of a spoiled, tantrum-throwing toddler of a prince way back when in the Scottish Highlands. So, Ewan the Headless comes from the Scottish mythology and folklore that pertains to this idea of the horseless headman? The headless horseman! I've said it too many times, so I'm just going to tell you the story of Ewan. So, back in the 1300s, Ewan was the son of Hector, who was, and I'm going to refer to my book, he was the leader, Hector, so Ewan's dad, was the leader of the MacLean of Loch Buie. I'm so sorry if I pronounce all of these names wrong. I know that I have lots of Scottish heritage and my family came out of Scotland. I bear a Scottish name, but I'm not very good with pronouncing the proper Scottish things. I tried looking, but I don't want to turn around and say these names like Google Voices did, because that was terrifying, actually. But yes, so Ewan was the son of Hector, who was the head of this clan, and it was a big clan that was rivaling against various other clans at the time. But Ewan was known and is always told of and spoken of as the son with the small head, which usually kind of means that he was dumb. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that's unfair. Let's give this guy a chance. But no. I think it's fair to say that Ewan was dumb. Ewan was dumb and a toddler, and well, he wasn't literally a toddler, but he acted like one. So he basically acted like a prince. And what happened is one day, Ewan is there, and his dad's sitting, and Ewan's like, dude, you're getting old. He turns to his dad and he says, you're getting old. When do I get to take the throne? You know, that typical princely thing of, hey, buddy, die already. I want the throne. And his dad's kind of getting a little bit exasperated of him. It's been a long time, and his dumbass son is just waiting for him to die and won't stop pestering him. And eventually his dad turns around and is like, dude, chill. Probably more Scottish than that, which, knowing a lot of Scottish people, far more cussing involved, probably. But Hector is like, Ewan, dumbass, chill out. Let's stop this. And Ewan doesn't like this, and he gets pissed off, and the two of them have this huge big fight. Ewan actually hit Hector in the middle of this fight, and so Hector was like, my son hit me over the back of the head, he attempted to murder me. Probably that's not what all of the law says, but that is definitely what Ewan was trying to do, was just trying to speed up the process to be kingsman of the clan. And Hector's brother turns around and says, that's not good enough. That's ridiculous. And so he turns around to Ewan and says, tomorrow I declare war on you. We are going to have a big battle. If you want, kind of one of those pick on someone your own size kind of things. And Ewan's uncle turns around and says, you want the throne so much? Win it, dumbass. He's totally a dumbass. So Ewan, of course, doesn't sit there like the knights in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and go, fine, and tries to cheat or do anything like that. Ewan does the princely thing, which is throw a tantrum and go away. And he walks out into the woods and he throws a strop, and he does all of those things that parents have nightmares of, that we all do when we're like 13. But he goes and he's walking through this woods, right? And this is where it gets a little bit, in all of the tales and versions that I read, all of them show that they were written by men at this point. So, Ewan's there, he's walking through the woods, and he comes across a stream, and he's like, oh, this is great. But then just up the stream, he sees this washerwoman, right? It's just deemed a washerwoman. And all of the texts comment on how this washerwoman has really big boobs. That's mainly what they focus on. They don't tell us her age, they don't tell us her name, they don't tell us much about her other than she's got huge boobs. And being the toddler that he is, Ewan goes over to this woman, and as he's approaching, he starts to realise she's washing clothes in the stream. But they seem to be clean clothes, but when they're in the stream, the water that's rushing from them is full of blood. And he's like, hold on. Woman in the middle of a woods, mysterious, big boobs, bloody clothes, and blood in the stream. And he goes, hold on, I've heard of this. And this woman, he knows, and he realizes, is actually a fairy. Okay? And she is a fairy, and she's a bad fairy. She's a bad omen. A lot of lore involves lots of seeing omens. But she's not the Headless Horseman. Not quite yet. We're not quite there yet. I know. You're sitting there going, how is this the Headless Horseman? We're getting there. We are getting there. Yes, Ewan's gonna get his head chopped off. But we're gonna enjoy it. Because, And we're gonna enjoy it particularly because this dumbass is not gonna sit there and go, oh, I'm just gonna leave this woman alone because she's fairy and magic and evil and an omen of death and stuff. He decides, no, he's gonna try and trick her. So he sneaks up behind her, which is totally not what anybody should be doing to anybody. #MeToo. He sneaks up behind her and he grabs her boob and shoves it into his mouth. This is where I start to get a little bit lost in the text, and I think the writer did too. Because I think, this is folklore from the 1300s. They didn't have Netflix, they didn't have TV, they didn't have Pornhub. I'll give it to them. There's quite a lot of detail on how he suckled from this fairy's breast. So he might have actually been a toddler, but I'm going to assume, considering he's about to go to war, that he's not. So anyway, he's sucking on this fairy's boob, hasn't asked her name, very Tinder, very Hinge, very Grindr, and he turns around and says, I am your long-lost child. I am actually your child, and I finally found you, oh mother, oh mother. And the fairy in the story is like, oh, son, yes, let me bestow upon you some wisdom. In reality, she's probably like, oh, here we go again. So, Ewan decides to ask this fairy, who's meant to be able to soothsay and know the future and is an omen and basically is magic, so everything that comes along with magic. And he says, I would like you to tell me how tomorrow's battle will unfold. Will I win? Probably assuming because Ewan's like, well, if I'm not going to win, I'm just not going to take part and I'm going to stay here in the woods and become a wood creature or whatever it is idiots think that happen when family members challenge you to a duel. But the fairy sees through this, okay? And the fairy's like, And instead of giving him an answer, because of course she knows, she turns around and does the typical fairy thing and says to him, and I will quote, she essentially says, if you're given butter with your porridge tomorrow morning before the battle, without being asked, then you will win. So if you're given butter with your porridge without you asking for it, then you'll win. Now Ewan, the temper tantrum drama queen that he is, decides, no, that's not good enough. And he throws her tit aside and stamps his feet and throws a tantrum and cusses at her and tells her that's not good enough and throws another tantrum, basically. And he goes storming off again through the woods back to his castle, no doubt slamming all of the doors. And then the very next morning he gets up, right? And all of the troops, all of the men that are about to go and die by blade or worse for this little child of a man, they're all in the banquet hall and they're all being fed porridge. And as the porridge gets laid out, Ewan stands up and he shouts, stop. And he doesn't say anything more, but everybody stops because A, he's the prince, that's what you do. But B, he's also somebody who throws a lot of tantrums. So we're just gonna leave him be. We're not gonna do anything. So everybody stops eating. They don't touch it. They just don't touch the food. And Ewan stands there with everybody kind of looking at him like, what is he playing at? And he stands and he waits. And he waits. And he waits. And no butter is offered. Of course no butter is offered. Nobody can read your mind, Ewan. But he, again, very Ewan, throws a tantrum. And he stamps and he's like, why is nobody bringing me butter? You're meant to bring me butter. And of course that is him asking for butter. So he's completely screwed the pooch on this idea of winning. But he decides to go into battle anyway. And in the battle, and this is where the story gets really quite short, he gets his head chopped off. He goes out onto battle and he gets his head chopped off. Which is really, really great if you actually imagine this idea of this person in reality. I think we all know a Ewan. But, and this is where the Headless Horseman mythology comes right back into it. Ewan, in life and in death, throws a tantrum. And the mythology that we live with is that whenever someone who is part of the MacLean of Lochby family, or a descendant of the Lochby MacLeans, whenever a member of that clan dies, you can hear the sounds of horses' feet, and you can feel the presence of Ewan the Headless. Sometimes you can even see the Headless Horseman as a ghost around either the grave or around the place of death of this MacLean Lochbury. Lochbur? Something like that. I know I'm getting the Loch bit right. So, essentially, any time part of his family dies, he throws another tantrum. Or either it's a tantrum or it's a victory parade. I don't know. But that is how Ewan the Headless is attached to this idea of a headless horseman. Ewan is a headless horseman. And I had never, ever, ever heard of this story. And it totally amused me and very much informed me a little bit more about the legends that sit within the Scottish Highlands. And you can even go out to the Isle of Mull. That's where this clan originated from, and this is where Ewan died. And apparently you can go out onto the Isle of Mull and occasionally you'll see him. And I don't think you want to see him, considering omen of death or death stuff. But that is where it's from. So it's the Headless Horseman that is not a fictional thing like Washington Irving's story, but it's based within a story that has been handed down through generations that is actually somewhere and something that could have tangibly happened. Not necessarily him throwing his tantrum / victory parade every time somebody dies. That's entirely down to what you believe in. But before I leave you, I want to talk about one more mythological story, one more bit that I found about the Headless Horseman. Because we have lots and lots, across Western culture, we've got lots and lots of apparitions of this idea of the Headless Horseman. But of course, we've got the legends of Sleepy Hollow, we've got the Green Knight, the noble knights from England, we have got the Scottish here with a battle-ridden story of temper tantrums and going to war like a proper Celtic man. But then you've got the Irish, alright? And the Irish kind of turn around and go, you all are definitely playing some child's play. Because in Ireland, my goodness, this is why I love the Irish. You have this thing called the Dullahan. And apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong. If you're Irish, either give me like a phonetic or record yourself saying it, but the Dullahan, which is the most metal response to this idea of the Headless Horseman I've ever seen. It's the most metal response to this idea of a mythological creature or a piece of supernatural storytelling I've ever heard. So the Dullahan, right? That is a Headless Horseman within Irish folklore. Now, Ireland, most of the folklore is around this idea of fairies and gods or imps. It's usually creatures. So the Headless Horseman in the Irish mythologies is actually, it's not a ghost. It's not something that if you throw a piece of iron at it or run too hard at it, it'll disappear. And video effects guys, when they're trying to capture you, have to work really hard. No. You run into a Dullahan, you're gonna bounce. So, and you also don't want to, I'll be honest. So the Dullahan is meant to be the embodiment of the Celtic god. Now again, here, I did look this up. Crumdubh? Cromdubh. Irish people, enlighten us, because there are various videos giving the pronunciation of that, and they're all slightly different. But this Celtic god, which is a bad god, a dark god, the Dullahan is meant to be the embodiment and the manifestation of this god. But essentially they are called a fairy, because I think that's kind of used as a catch-all term for mythological and supernatural creatures within Ireland. Don't quote me on that one. I will get back to you. I'll figure that out. That's part of my research. I need to do better. But the Dullahan is, again, a man, sometimes a woman. Hell yeah, Ireland. Thank you. Represent. The Dullahan is a man riding on horseback without a head. Right? Nothing unusual there, right? It's a black horse. And this is where it starts to describe things. So the Dullahan doesn't not have a head. The Dullahan has his head. He does have his head. It's just not attached to his body. The Dullahan either holds his head under his arm when he's riding or holds his head above his head. I mean, above where his head would have gone. You get what I mean. He's wrangling his decapitated head, right? Holding it up there. But this head, and there's a lot of description in it, the Dullahan's head has a smile that reaches from ear to ear, and it is this creepy, creepy smile. If you know, when I was reading this, I couldn't help but think about the Chelsea smile, which is a really horrific thing that gangs in certain places do, where they slit the corners of your mouth and then hit you or make you laugh. Probably not, but it's not unfeasible. So that the slits turn into rips and it essentially, gives you a Joker face. But painful and not with any of the kind of evil villain. Or maybe the evil villain does come from it. But the Dullahan has a Chelsea smile. It has a smile from ear to ear, this creepy smile. But it also has eyes. And the eyes are constantly moving. Right? The eyes are constantly moving. And the eyes are said to be able to see through any darkness, be able to see through any fog. And the eyes can see who is going to die next. Alright? Okay, so far, we've got creepy smile, we've got eyes. The head also has got the texture of mouldy cheese, or cottage cheese, but mainly mouldy cheese is what most of the stories I found mention that. I don't know if it's cheddar, I don't know if it's blue cheese. Either way, it comes with the connotation of a smell, and I'm not too into that, but cool. So far it's just creepy. So why have I said metal? Right? And this is where it gets metal. Alongside his black horse and his creepy head, the Dullahan also has a whip made of human spines. This whip is made out of a human spine, right? We're getting a little bit more metal. The Dullahan is also someone or something that can occasionally be seen with a horse-drawn carriage, right? He has a wagon with him. But this wagon, alright, let me get this right. This wagon is said to be full of funeral objects. Okay, we're getting a little bit more gothic, getting a little bit more metal, but we really, really get metal when we realise that this wagon also has its spokes that are holding the wheels. The spokes are made of thigh bones. And the covering is made of human skin. Yeah. And also, whenever the Dullahan calls out somebody's name, they die instantly, and he captures their souls. So, he's a soul-eating fairy god that rides on a steed, carrying a bone and skin-made wagon, wielding someone else's spine, with his creepy-eyed, smiley face on a head in his hand. I think that the Irish version of the Headless Horseman? Yes, the Headless Horseman. I'm now getting very confused. I think that is the most metal response to this idea of a Headless Horseman. It's kind of like the Irish went, you know what? Let's really make this something nightmarish. Everybody wants to go out into the Isle of Mull and try and see the Ewan the Headless. Nah, man. If you go to Ireland and you see this, you want him to take you. Top tip, if you ever do see a Dullahan, apparently gold repels them. So gold objects. So if you go to Ireland, or if you think you've crossed a dark god that is Celtic, carry a lot of golden objects on you, and maybe you'll survive this Headless Horseman and his attempt to go all Death Eater on you and steal your soul. Yeah. So that is the Headless Horseman. And I had so much fun reading up and learning more about this thing. I'd always kind of gone, oh, it's a ghost, and then never been that interested in the idea of the Headless Horseman. But it's so rich. And one of the things that I noticed with all of them, all of these poor guys are like they come out of, somebody's messed them up and just chopped their head off, and the disposition of most of them just tends to be kind of like, ugh, gosh. It's quite a vengeful spirit, and it's quite sad, and also really, really metal. And so you can see, if you go and Google Headless Horseman, a lot of the artwork that it inspires is super cool and something you want on a t-shirt when you go and see Metallica. The Headless Horseman is really, really a deeper mythology than I thought it was going to be. And a creature / ghost / god that is far more intricate than I thought it was going to be. So, that is the Headless Horseman. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, do all of the things that we all know how to do already. And I will see you in the next episode. Be safe. I don't know how to end this. Other than, I hope you don't meet the Dullahan. Maybe the Green Knight seems like the best one to meet, because he just seems like he's just trying to do his job, and then people just mess him up. But I haven't fully read that tale again, so maybe not. But happy hunting, happy Halloween, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!